Before we get started here, I wanted to kind of give you an introduction to perspective. And let's talk about perspective. So this is an image that shows some really interesting points about perspective, which are objects that are closer to the viewer, like this pillar here, appear larger than objects further away from the viewer. And you can see they get progressively smaller, these pillars, as they go down towards the horizon line here. And they end up in what's called a vanishing point, which is a point here off, if you can imagine the horizon line here. It's a point off into the horizon where they vanish to. And this is a simple one-point perspective. And to give you an idea, here is a really old wood-etched picture of perspective. And you can see these lines here on the building go down to a vanishing point. And what happens is the things that are closer to you appear much larger than, and progressively get smaller as they get further and further away and go towards the vanishing point. And this is really apparent when you look at photographs that have extreme perspective, like this one and like this one, where you can have these, the distance between the railroad tracks are the same, but as they go further and further back towards the horizon, they seem to kind of almost meet at a point. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this also applies to motion. And what I mean by that is things that are closer to the camera. So let's go back to our image here of this little atrium. Images, things like this pillar, if you were to move the camera now sideways, this pillar is going to move a lot more than this pillar over here, and that pillar is going to move a lot more than the next, and etc. as you go down. And the closer you get towards the horizon line and towards the vanishing point over here, like in this picture, the more you get over here, the less motion there actually is that's perceptible. Now, a lot of you have seen a lot of animated cartoons, and there's a YouTube clip here that I'm going to pull up that really shows how they use this in animation. So you can see that they're taking just a bunch of different layers and moving them differently to each other. The ones that are closer are moving a lot faster than the ones that are next and further away, are moving a lot slower than these, are moving a lot slower, and so on and so forth. And this gives you an illusion. And the illusion is that there's depth, because we're using perspective and we're using this difference in motion. And that difference in motion is called parallax. And what parallax is it's basically saying that as we move further back from the viewpoint, the motion gets smaller and smaller. Just like as we move further back, the image size seems to get smaller and smaller. Also, its motion relative to the point of view gets smaller and smaller. You can see that the foreground motion is moving relative to the background motion. So the motion's all going in the same direction, just the amount of motion is less as we get further towards the horizon line. And this is the illusion known as parallax. And there's some really good examples of parallax and the use of parallax. This is a really great video that you can find on Vimeo. And we're going to be learning a lot of techniques that they use in this particular video. They're using still images and creating motion. And all of these still images are then turned into moving pictures. And they're using the parallax technique a lot. As you can see, we've got things in the background. They're also using techniques with focus. And it's really, really compelling, because you can now take still photographs that used to just have to be a single image, and you can actually create some pretty compelling moving pictures. And this really opens up the creative door to presentation, and it really opens up the ability for you to show some very interesting ways of showing your artwork to people and to present things. So I'm very excited to get started. Please check out this video. It's on Vimeo, and I'll give you a link. We're going to get started right now with our first image.